Hello, and welcome back. Today we have more vampires for ya, and this time we're diving into Dracula and comparing and contrasting with Mesopotamian lore surrounding vampires. I found this one to be quite interesting how Hollywood builds the framework of what they think depicts a vampire and what different countries and the lore surrounding such creature has to say about it. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is from Demon to Aristocrat. Let's get into it. Oh, but before that, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. Now let's get into it. The vampire is often treated as a product of European folklore in 19th century Gothic fiction. However, long before the publication of Dracula by Bram Stoker, ancient Mesopotamian cultures developed myths about blood drinking, life draining, supernatural beings. A comparison between Count Dracula and vampire like figures from Mesopotamian lore, particularly Lameshtu and Lilitu, reveals a profound transformation in how societies conceptualize evil, disease, sexuality, and the supernatural. While Mesopotamian vampire figures function within a religious cosmology as explanations for illness and mortality, Dracula represents a modern literary construction shaped by Victorian anxieties about sexuality, invasion, and degeneration. The evolution from ancient demon to Gothic aristocrat illustrates a broader shift from a mythic cosmology to psychological and social metaphor. One of the most significant differences between Dracula and Mesopotamian vampire figures lies in their ontological status. In Mesopotamian belief systems, beings such as Lameshtu and Lilitu are not undead humans, but primordial demons or spirits. Lameshtu, for example, was described as a monstrous female entity who preyed upon pregnant women and infants, drinking blood and causing illness. Lilitu, associated with night spirits, was linked to seduction, infertility, and vulnerability in childbirth. These figures existed within a complex pantheon of gods and demons, occupying a defined place in a structured cosmology. Their existence was not fictional in the modern sense. They were believed to be real forces affecting daily life. Ritual incantations, protective amulets, and demon-repelling practices were employed to ward them off. In the context, the vampiric act of draining blood symbolized literal danger to communal survival. By contrast, Count Dracula is a transformed being, traditionally understood as once human, now undead. Though ancient and powerful, he retains personality, strategy, and memory. He is not a cosmic force, but an individual character with motives and plans. Dracula moves through the world strategically, relocating from Transylvania to England in pursuit of influence and sustenance. This individualization reflects a literary culture increasingly concerned with psychology and agency rather than mythic archetype. Thus, while Mesopotamian vampire figures are supernatural from inception, Dracula is a corrupted human figure embodying moral and existential transgression rather than primordial chaos. Both Mesopotamian demons and Dracula are associated with illness, yet the meaning of that association differs dramatically. In ancient Mesopotamia, high rates of infant mortality, maternal death, and epidemic disease demanded explanation. Lameshtu was blamed for miscarriages, sudden infant death, and plague-like symptoms. Blood-drinking demons provided a theological framework through which suffering could be understood and ritualized. Illness was not random, but the result of supernatural interference. In this way, vampire-like entities function as a explanatory mechanism within a pre-scientific worldview. Dracula, written in 1897, emerges in a society already shaped by scientific advancement. The characters in Stoker's novel use blood transfusions, typewriters, and modern medicine in their struggle against him. While Dracula's bite spreads vampirism, this contagion operates symbolically as much as physically. Victorian readers often interpreted vampirism as a metaphor for degeneration, moral corruption, or sexually transmitted disease. The supernatural threat coexists within the scientific rationality, creating tension between ancient superstition and modern progress. In Mesopotamian culture, the vampire explains disease. In Victorian England, disease becomes a metaphor for social anxiety. The supernatural no longer fully governs reality, but intrudes upon an increasingly rational world. Gender plays a central role in both traditions, though in different ways. Mesopotamian vampire like figures are frequently female. Lamashtu and Lilitu embody fears surrounding childbirth, maternal vulnerability, and female sexuality outside patriarchal structures. Their danger is intimately connected to reproduction. In a society where survival depended on successful childbirth, such anxieties were existential. The demonization of these figures reflects a deep cultural concern about uncontrollable forces associated with femininity. Dracula, however, centers male predatory sexuality. Count Dracula is an aristocratic male who's encountered with Lucy Westenra and Mina Harker are charged with erotic tension. The act of biting is intimate and transgressive, often interpreted as symbolic of sexual penetration. In this context, the vampire becomes a figure through which Victorian fears about female sexual awakening, aristocratic decadence, and foreign invasion are explored. The gender dynamic thus reverses. Mesopotamian lore frequently portrays the dangerous vampire figure as a female, embodying fear of reproductive and sexual chaos. Stoker's Dracula portrays the vampire as male, embodying fear of invasive masculinity and moral corruption within the domestic sphere. Mesopotamian vampire figures functioned within a lived region. They were integrated into daily spiritual practice, addressed through incantations, and depicted on protective objects. The role was communal and practical to explain misfortune and offer ritual means of defense. Dracula, by contrast, functions within literary culture. Though inspired by Eastern European folklore, he is a crafted Gothic figure designed to provoke suspense and explore contemporary tensions. His narrative engages with imperial anxiety as an Eastern European noble infiltrates British society. It reflects fears about reverse colonization, racial degeneration, and the fragility of modern civilization. In this transformation, the vampire shifts from sacred cosmology to secular metaphor. The Mesopotamian demon belongs to a universe governed by divine forces. Dracula belongs to a world negotiating modernity, where the supernatural is both feared and scrutinized. Despite these differences, continuity exists. Both Mesopotamian demons and Dracula both drink blood as a source of vitality. They operate nocturnally and they threaten vulnerable populations. And they also represent invisible dangers. Yet the meaning of these traits evolves. In ancient Mesopotamia, they signal divine punishment or cosmic imbalance. In Victorian England, they signal psychological, sexual, and political anxiety. The vampire's transformation over millennia demonstrates its adaptability as a cultural symbol. What begins as a mythic explanation for morality becomes a literary exploration of social instability. The comparison between Dracula and Mesopotamian vampire figures such as Lamashtu and Lilitu reveals not simply different monsters, but different worldviews. In Mesopotamian lore, vampire-like beings function as a religious explanation for disease and reproductive danger, embedded in a cosmology where supernatural forces directly govern human fate. In Stoker's Dracula, the vampire becomes an individualized aristocrat whose threat symbolizes Victorian fears about sexuality, invasion, and degeneration. The evolution from ancient demon to Gothic nobleman marks a broader cultural shift, from mythic cosmology to psychological and social metaphor, from communal ritual defense to literary confrontation. Across millennia, the vampire remains a vessel for fear, but the nature of that fear transforms within the societies that imagined it. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and also make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. And stay tuned for more videos from us. And as always, stay safe, courteous, and polite out there. And obviously, remember, stay anomalous.